Start the webinar. Okay, welcome everyone to the second webinar of the CORTEX2 project, where we'll be breaking the essentials for the successful application to our OpenCall 1. And this is what we have prepared for you today. We will start with some opening and brief remarks. And then we're going to move to the core part of today's presentation. So it is divided in those three sections, as you can see. So first, we will unfold what happens once you applied. We will take you through the evaluation process. Then we're going to move what will happen once you pass the evaluation and actually you receive that great information that you were selected for the program. We will demonstrate, the elements of the program for the track 1 code development and the track 2, the use cases, as well as you will learn what CORTEX2 prepares for you in terms of resources and tailored support throughout those programs. And eventually, we will also demonstrate how you will be paid more on the funding scheme. And as usual, we have this Q&A session at the end. Today's speakers is my colleague Ellie Shtereva, Open Call Manager from F6 myself, and then we have a support from Alan Pagani, Project Coordinator of CORTEX2. Those brief information before we actually really start. So in case you missed our first webinar, it is recorded, it is already published on our website, so we definitely encourage you to take a look. Please keep in mind that this webinar, the second webinar, is a follow-up, so we will not be repeating anything that has been already said in the first webinar. This is available on our OpenCall page at our website and also on the YouTube channel. As I mentioned, once this webinar is finished, we will be able to publish this on all the CORTEX2 digital channels, and then you can post the questions in the chat throughout all the sections of this webinar. Our colleagues will be trying to answer those of you, right away, and some of them we may need to keep it at the Q&A session. So the final note, the final announcement is that we have already scheduled the final webinar, webinar 3, where we'll be decoding OpenCall 1 topics and domains, which basically means that we'll be taking you through of information for every specific technical topic from the code development tracks, and we'll also be demonstrating more information regarding the use cases and domains. So it's going to be more technical workshop where we definitely welcome you to take advantage of this and make sure to prepare your application in line with the technical expectations. You can register for this free online event at our F6's page. Okay, so I suggest now we're gonna move forward to the core part, and let's start what really happens once you apply. That means you have done everything what we presented in the webinar 1, and what happens further with your application. So what I'm going to be presenting in a moment are those following steps that belong to the evaluation process. That means after application, we will be checking your eligibility for this call. Once your application is eligible, it will be passed to the remote review, and then I will be presenting you what are the evaluation criteria for that step. After this, there will be a consensus run by the evaluators, and eventually we will be shortlisting candidates that will be invited to the interview. And all those steps I will be covering now one by one. So eligibility checklist. Your application will be eligible only if you address and meet all the criteria that we're going to present now. So the submission is eligible only through the F6 platform. There is no other source to submit the application. Your application, you as an applicant, you must represent a legal status of the entity coming from the eligible country from the Horizon Europe list, and this list you can find in our previous webinar, as well as in the guidelines for applicants. The application, the proposal that you are submitting to us must be complete. That means there are no missing answers in the mandatory fields at the F6S application page, as well as the required annexes that you will need to upload to the platform, mainly the proposal template. The requested budget, there is a maximum requested budget that you can apply for. For track 1 is the 100,000 euro, for the track 2 is 200,000 euro. And in your application, you, as well as the F6S application page, you cannot request more than the maximum funding. The number of partners you can apply as in one entity or maximum as 2 entities, 2 partners per each of the tracks. Of course, the application must be submitted on time. We always highlight it as it is very, very important. There is a specific deadline, not only in terms of the day, but also in terms of the hour. So the F6S platform will automatically close the application page at 5 o'clock Central European time. Any network issues or other technical problems will not be justified. And if your application is not submitted, it will simply not be taken into account for the evaluation process. We really strongly encourage you to not wait until the very last moment, as simply there can be also a traffic of many applicants. Language, English is the only eligible language to fill out, or what you need to fill out to submit the proposal. And the application cannot have any conflict of interest. So what it means, the application will not be accepted from the persons or organizations that are partners already in the CORTEX2 consortiums, or which are formally linked in any way to partners of the CORTEX2 consortium. If you have any doubts for that, you can always contact us via email, and we will support you to analyze where there is a conflict or not. So once this eligibility check is performed, we have the results, and your application can either pass all the eligibility check criteria that we just presented, and it's going to be moved forward directly to the remote evaluation, or if it fails in any of the presented eligibility requirements, automatically is withdrawn from the evaluation process, and that is the end of the application. Assuming, of course, the application passed, then is in the next step in the remote evaluation. So all the eligible proposals will be assigned to 2 external independent evaluators outside of CORTEX2 consortiums. The pool of evaluators will consist the expertise, as you can see. So XR, VR, AR burst solution expertise, experts in AI, experts in teleconference and video conference platforms, user experience design, industry 4.0, market uptake and business scalability, and also ethical, legal, and social implication of XR-based telecooperative work. Of course, not all of the evaluators will be assigned to the application. We have very different topics, very different domain, and each evaluator will be matched with the relevant application. What criteria will be actually used by the external evaluators to assess and evaluate your application proposal? So we have those 4 criteria, and let's unfold what it means under each of them. So technical excellence, evaluators will be assessing the level of innovation of the concept and whether your proposal really fit to the call of the track and of the specific topic or domain, whether there is a clear technical, whether there's a clear set of technical objectives also aligned to the selected topic or domain requirements. There need to be quality, credibility, and clarity of the technical description. That is a significant part and core part of the application template. They will be checking the level of integration with CORTEX2 technologies, and eventually there is this visibility of the proposed work and the technological contribution that you are forecasting in your proposal. So that was the technical excellence. Under ambition and impact, you will need to demonstrate the impact on the CORTEX2 framework and overall contribution to the XR ecosystem. There need to be also overall impact of your proposed project, XR industrial relevance will be also assessed by the evaluators. Exploitation, dissemination, potential, and its effectiveness. There is a specific part, especially in case for the use cases track. Gender accessibility and inclusion impact, if applicable, for any of the topic that you select or the domain specification, and whether the potential outcomes can be adopted scalable. Regarding the team skills and expertise, they will be checking the quality of the entities that applied to the call, entity or entities in case it is a consortium. There need to be therefore clarity, in case there is a consortium, there need to be a clarity what is the advantage of the fusion of the partners and what is specific role of each of the partners. Of course, assessing technical capacity and excellence of the partners and the quality of individual participants' competences and expertise. In the proposal template, there is a table where you can fill out those information. And finally, we have project planning and value for money. So quality, effectiveness, and clarity of the project activities and structure and timing. So simply a really good plan for the 9 months period or the 12-month period, depends on the track. Appropriateness of deliverables, KPIs, and means of verification. Here, please be careful. There is already set of deliverables and KPIs suggested for the define topics or define domains, but we also are welcoming application from the open domains or open topics, and in that case you need to make sure your deliverables and KPIs will be identified as with relevance to the expectations. And of course, they will be assessing the allocation and justification of the proposed resources, so how you are planning to use this 100K or 200K in case of the use case track. This is, of course, a summary of the criteria that are mutual for the both of the tracks, but you must check the guidelines for applicants to see any specific additional criteria for the track that you are applying, to make sure that you understand how, based on what criteria your proposals will be evaluated. So each of the evaluation criteria that I have just presented will be given a score. The score is between 0 to 5. This will be given by the evaluators. And in order to pass the threshold for each of the eligibility, for each of the evaluation criteria, you need to receive at least 3 of each of the criteria, which is good. Means good proposal addresses the criterion well, but a few shortcomings are present. What happens then? So all evaluators did their job, they scored all the application, and then we are doing the ranking and consensus. So the ranking, we are having the 2 pools. So there is a 1 pool of application from the track 1 and the 1 pool of application for the track 2 for the use cases. Based on the overall average score, so the summary of the evaluation criterion between 1 and 4, we are selecting the minimum and the maximum number of proposals per topic for the code development tracks and per domain for the use case track, assuming, of course, that we will have all the application distributed per each of the topic. That will be released by the 17th of January, actually. The goal is to shortlist 15 applications per track 1 and 15 application per track 2 with the highest scores. What happens after this ranking is that evaluators will gather into the consensus meetings to identify the final scoring in case of any discrepancy or differences more than 20% in the scores. And after that, that consensus meeting, we will be having the list of the shortlisted candidates. Those shortlisted candidates will be invited to the interview phase. So what is expected at the interview? It will be an online call where we will simply ask you to turn on the camera. It will be also recorded for the purpose of the transparency. What it will cover a pitch that will be given by you as an applicant, following a specific template that we will provide for you with specific aspects. that you will need to demonstrate basically the plan, the expectation, the impact. We will be covering and checking any remarks from the evaluators, any specific question that need to be clarified. There will be present the CORTEX2 topics or domains leaders from the CORTEX2 consortium that will be evaluating the match and relevance to the expectation, and there will be a Q&A session. We will be asking you questions, but you can also ask questions, clarify any questions with the CORTEX consortium. Timing around 30-45 minutes. So moving forward, there are those additional interview criteria that will be taken into account. Concept and innovation, impact and exploitation, work plan and applicants, and you can check the details in the guidelines for applicants for those criteria. Final selection, so once all the interviews are run, so at least 30 interviews is planned to be run, we will be performing the final consensus, the final ranking, and based on this, we are aiming to select 20 applications, 10 applications per each track, with the top scores, and then we will be, of course, invited to the program. Every eligible applicant will receive an evaluation summary report with an explanation of the scores and feedback from the external evaluators. So I hope that was clear or clarified any doubts in case you have. And now we will move to what really happens that you were in that lucky pool of the selected applicants and what happens next. So everything about the program. So the CORTEX2 OpenCo1 program has the following steps. So once you are selected, you will be invited first of all to the contracting phase. There will be a specific timeline for that. So you need to gather the set of the documents that I will present you in a moment, and make sure that you are able to sign the contract within the given deadline. Once the contract phase is done, we will move to the onboarding phase. And from the onboarding, you will be ready to start actually the program. Program will be for each of the tracks, track 1 and track 2. The program is divided into 3 different parts, and then we will be presenting you the differences between track 1 and track 2. For both of the tracks, you will, when you're gonna start the program, you will be expected to actively participate in the dissemination activities and collaboration activities with the CORTEX2 consortium. And during that program period, we will be supporting you with the mentoring and monitoring program, which Ellie, my colleague, will unfold a little bit more details about this later on. So contracting. For the contracting is a specific set of documents needed. So you will need to provide us with the proof of legal existence of your entity. It can be the entity registration or any other official document per your country. You will need to fill out the specific annexes that are already available at the OpenCo1 CORTEX2 website. So there is declaration of honor, there is proof of the SME, sub-grant agreement, and bank account information. Those documents need to be submitted on time to successfully perform the contracting phase. What happens then? Assuming the contract was signed, then you will be invited to the onboarding phase, and this will start with the kickoff meeting. It will be an online meeting organized where you're gonna meet us, the whole consortium of CORTEX2. We will also meet you and the rest of the partners, where you will be able to present your plan and your winning proposal. The individual mentor will be assigned to each of the winning party. There will be, each of the program will be going through the review processes. So there will be the 3 review processes in form of the online meetings at the end of each phase. And we will be basically checking the status of the deliverables, KPIs, and overall achievement. And those review processes are aligned with the payment that we will present also later in the slides. What is expected throughout all the duration is active participation in audio, video calls, webinars, online trainings, virtual conferences, anything recommended by the CORTEX2 consortium. and we advise, that you secure certain funding in your proposal, because there can be potential one physical event participation at the end of the program. And as mentioned before, the active dissemination is required, as we need to give the visibility to the public funding coming from the European Union. Okay, so now we move to the specific requirements or specific, let's say, components of each of the programs. So I will start with the co-development track. This you can recognize from the guidelines for applicants. You can find there the details, but basically the co-development tracks is divided into 3 sprints. Each of the sprints has 3 months duration, and there is a specific means of verification of your progress. That means we will be in the sprint 1, there is this design and integration plan and a set of deliverables required per topics and KPIs required per topic for that specific first period. Then in the sprint 2, in the integration phase, we have the requirement as the minimum demo, and again, list of deliverables and KPIs assigned to that specific sprint 2. And for the final sprint, we are expecting the final product and test results, and again, the final list of deliverables per selected topic, and the list of, meeting all the KPIs, and that is the final validation phase. I will not touch upon the budget, as this will be in a separate slide. And now we're just going to have a bit deeper look. You can also find more details in the guidelines for applicants. So the first sprint development will have, the main objective is that you do the fine-tune planning and understanding of the technology usage of the CORTEX2. So of course you are submitting to us this 10 pages proposal with, with a plan, but then this development sprint will have a bit time, so you really unfold and specify exactly also to the feedback received during the evaluation and from the assigned mentor to really fine-tuning, and you will need to focus on detailed project plan, which technologies will be used, there will be expected the report on technical developments, and the detailed list of KPIs and milestones with metrics in case they will need to be adapted. And at the end of the sprint, of course, you need to submit all the assigned deliverables, and we will be also expecting a publishable summary obtained at the stage that we'll be able to disseminate on our project social media channels and website. Second phase, main goal, reporting on implementation integration. So a bit more, wider focus, not wider, but more complex focus, extensive focus. So integration phase sprint requires configuration of units and software, reporting of the operation, initiation and technology deployment by the end user, collection of relevant data. We will be checking the project performance, again, in terms of the KPIs identified in the previous planning, prove that the CORTEX2 tech offering has been used in your phase and integrated for the project purposes. And then, as mentioned previously, there will be this expected demo, which will be publishing at the official YouTube channel of the CORTEX2 once approved. And again, publishable summary at the end of the integration spring. And then the final phase, validation, need to validate the code development performed in the previous phase and foster the exploitation of the project results. And then the focus here is on the on a demonstrator and a report on the developed features of future. For exploitation specifically, there is required a business plan, how the results will be, which result will be exploitable, presentation on the final module with a documentation available, validation of the source code of the final product if applicable, and you will be requested to upload the scorecard on a repository on Git also if applicable. And I believe, Ellie, now you will, before, at the end of this final phase, apart from the publishable summary, you will be requested to take part in the impact assessment that will be performed by us, the CORTEX2, to understand the impact the program had on your project, your developments. So having said that, Ellie, I believe now you can take over and unfold the track use cases.
Yes, just a second. I believe you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so moving into track 2 use cases and your participation in the 12 months program. Here you can see an overview of how the program will unravel. Instead of sprints, we have 3 phases, and each phase is characterized by a certain duration period, certain requirements, means of verification, and budget allocated to each phase if, of course, you conduct it in a successful manner. Going into details into each phases, phase 1, called requirements, is focusing, of course, on the implementation plan and the roadmap. Here, we expect to see your plan in conducting your project, and you would need to focus within it on how the project will be implemented, including technologies that will be used. Here, additionally, we would like to see the plan for the proof of concept and how this is going to be implemented. And last but not least, user stories, meaning here you can apply, for example, a customer journey map, so we can see how it is expected that the customer or the user will be experiencing your solution. And then this is going to be substantiated within phase 3, seeing your user studies report, as this is one of the deliverables that we will be expecting. Phase 1 requirements finishes as all other phases and sprints presented by Eva, with a final written report, and an online review. Here, as per the guidelines for applicants, we have 2 deliverables that need to be delivered by your project. The first one is the implementation plan, and the second one is the performance report, where we would need to see all the activities that have been implemented within your participation in this first phase. Additionally, something to mention, this is applicable to all phases. Of course, as mentioned, within the guidelines for applicants, we have certain deliverables, KPIs, and milestones that are expected from you. But of course, we will be checking any additional KPIs and milestones that might be applicable to your solutions. And those are the ones that we will be discussing with you in phase 1 when you're writing your implementation plan. So based on that, we might have any additional KPIs and milestones to be checked upon to report on the successful execution of your project. Then phase 2 is the development and deployment phase, and this is the lengthiest phase, of course, because here you're going to be working on your solution. Here we have allocated 5 months for this process, and you would need to focus on developing and showcasing a minimal viable product, a technical and performance report, which is going to be part of the final report that you're going to be providing as a deliverable. And as mentioned, the provision of any additional KPIs and milestones if agreed upon the initiation of your project. As minimum deliverables requested per the guidelines, we have the performance report and the minimum viable product. And we're moving to phase 3, which is the final phase, validation, where all the magic happens. Here we want to see your project successfully executed, and we're focusing on implementing the use case. Main thing to see is the demonstration of the project in an operational environment, the deliverables and KPIs as per the guidelines, and if required, as agreed with you upon your initiation in the program. A video demonstrating the use case, the user study report that I've mentioned with a minimum of 10 users, and we would like to see an exploitation plan showcasing what will you be doing with the project after the end of your program participation. As the other phases, this one as well concludes with the online review and the written final report. Here we're calling this an evaluation report because it marks the overall activity and your involvement in the Cortex Assistance Program, and the video demonstrating the use case, and finally the exploitation plan mentioned. Okay, and then moving to the resources and tailored support provided within the CORTEX2 Assistance Program. This is applicable for both tracks, track 1 called development and track 2 use cases. First, all projects are going to be appointed with one mentor. This mentor can be considered as the main expert and advisor to your project. He's going to follow your achievements, follow your success, evaluate the deliverables, KPIs, and milestones submitted, and he will help you in your pathway towards success. He is also, of course, going to be participating in the online reviews that we are conducting, and based on his evaluation, the budget for your participation within the different phases is going to be released. Additionally, each project will be appointed a monitor. This is your first point of contact for any type of administrative needs you might have. So any challenges, any doubts, you're going to your monitor. The monitor is in constant collaboration with your coach. He's also checking all the deliverables submitted for consistency, and afterwards he's sending those for the coach for the qualitative evaluation. Both of them are participating in all online reviews. And this is it in a nutshell for your monitor. Okay. And last but not least, of course, you're going to have additional assistance coming from the CORTEX2 program. First, you're going to have access to CORTEX2 multimodal collaborative platform. You're going to get assistance in terms of administration, cloud hosting, and open API, a tailored expert support if your project decides with the support of the coach that any additional expertise is needed for the successful execution of your activities. Additional support will come from CORTEX2 consortium, and additional experts will guide you through the process. Of course, integration and validation support, and last but not least, dissemination of activities. As mentioned by Eva, of course, this is expected to be done by you within the duration of your involvement, but of course, we're also going to support you through the partner and expert dealing with this within the CORTEX2 project. Okay. And prior actually moving to Eva's slide, something else that I didn't mention for track to use cases. Of course, it is also expected that all projects are going to be participating in an impact assessment evaluation, and will provide access to summary of your projects to be published and disseminated with the larger audience. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ellie. Yes, so we can move to the final part, a relatively short one, but probably maybe the most important for some of you. So how actually you're going to be paid? So the characteristics of the financial support that is provided from the European Commission. So it is important to understand that CORTEX2 funding is results driven. And that means that the payments are provided as a payment in a lump sum way. Though some of you, if you had participated already in the other open calls in the run by the European Commission, this is probably a very well-known system. But if it is a new system for you, it means basically that receiving funding is associated with the full achievement of the relevant deliverables, KPIs, and contracted progress that we are checking through all those review processes that we have demonstrated, not the actual cost. So you will not be paid against your actual cost. You will be paid against successful implementation of the required deliverables and KPIs at each of the contracted phase. So you will be always paid at the end of the each phase, considering that all the required deliverables and KPIs were successfully submitted on time and successfully verified by our internal evaluators. There can be audits, so you are also, as well as we, consortium of CORTEX2, you are also required to keep all the technical documentation. So you don't need to, so the technical documentation means all the documents, reports from the deliverables, those videos, and the other materials that CORTEX2 may be requesting. So what is actually, the grant is eligible for what? What you can by the grant, which is again 100,000 euro for those that will be applying for the co-development tracks, and 200,000 euro for those maximum that will be applying for the use case. So there is 5 clear categories, and there are restricted categories that your fund should fall in when you are building your application, and especially the part from the template regarding the resource planning. So the main, obviously, category is that simply that funding will be used to pay for the work performed by your employees with your expertise, the capacity that you must have to actually, implement the submitted proposal. Some part of the funding can be used as investment in software, hardware, but remember only the value associated with its depreciation. So you need to be very careful here. Fund is also eligible for travels associated with the project deployment or CORTEX2 activities. You need to plan them, of course, ahead. And there's need to be really clear planning, because evaluators, external evaluators are trained, and they've been evaluating several open calls, and they really closely, carefully look under resource planning and associating this, with the plan and the activities, like in this one regarding the, for example, dissemination, or I don't know, specific trips that are needed that you indeed need to deploy, or in case of the use cases, maybe you need to travel somewhere to some, other facilities, other entities. Dissemination, you may consider, I don't know, production of the video, certain flyers, etc. We will be, of course, supporting you in terms of the dissemination materials, but you need to be prepared that we will be requiring from you also several, good quality dissemination materials that we'll be posting on our website, on the social media, to simply, promote your project and also the public funding. And last, subcontracting is allowed, but very minor, less than 15%. And we need to be very well justified. So you need to really justify that you are missing some key expertise that you don't have in your team, and then the evaluators will be considering whether this actually subcontracting is required for successful implementation of your proposal or not. So that will be in the hands of evaluators, and of course in your hands, how you're gonna really justify that need. And the final slides shows you how actually the payment will be done. So this is like a wrap up of what has been already mentioned with Ellie, but it gives you a good example. This is available in the guidelines for applicants, so you can have a closer look in this. We have 2 examples of the maximum funding available. So again, as mentioned, there will be 3 sprints in case of the code development track, and the 3 phases in case of the use case track. Each have the different duration that we have mentioned, and at the end of each program we will have that online review phase. We will be checking your progress, and then if you're gonna be successfully evaluated at the end of each of the phase, there will be, the specific percentage of fund release associated at the end of that sprint. And so we have it specifically for the code development track. At the end of the first sprint, you will be receiving the 40% of the total funding. At the end of the sprint 2, 35% of the remaining funding. And at the end, at the final phase, sprint 3, 25% of the funding. And it is exactly the same percentage distribution in case of the second track. Of course, the amount of money differs as the maximum grant funding differs per track. This is also related with the duration. Yeah, the co-development is the 9 months program. The use cases is a 12 months program, required to have the technology adopters and potentially technology provider, technology developers, while in the code development track, we basically are attracting code developers, technology provider, technology developers. And that would be my last slide on the core content for today's webinar plan. And Ellie, I suggest we can move to the Q&A session to check some question maybe have been already answered, and other question maybe participants will still have time to post in the Q&A. I just want to only add that you can ask any type of question. The question doesn't need to be related specifically to the content of today's webinar. You can take advantage to ask any other questions related to the whole program in case it was not really covered today or in the previous webinar. So just that final note from my side.
Awesome. Thank you, Eva. We have a few questions. I have answered one of them in the chat directly, but nevertheless, I still believe that we can provide additional information to it. So the first question is, I think, addressed to Alan mainly. Why is the CORTEX2 project based on a proprietary commercial platform, Rainbow, rather than, for example, an open source WebRTC platform?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Alain Pagani from the German Center of Artificial Intelligence. I'm the coordinator of the project. So yes, this question about the Rainbow framework. So actually, CORTEX2 is a new project, and for this EU project, we have a consortium that is typically made out of research centers, but also companies, SMEs, and larger companies. In that case, Alcatel Enterprise is part of the consortium. So what they bring into the project is their product, one of their projects, which is the Rainbow platform. So, and the reason why we chose to work with them is that it's a European-based video conferencing system. And in the frame of the project, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. So we needed a platform that is solid, that is evolutive, and that we can extend for our purposes. So that's why we chose to take a Rainbow. Now, I understand also that the question is related to also the cost of using it. And actually, well, first, if you collaborate with us in the frame of the open calls, you will be able to use the Rainbow platform in any case. Also, when the project is finished, the Cortex framework might be further developed into a product, and in that case, we will study the exploitation, how we will make the use of it partially for free or depending on different plans. And in the current Rainbow solution, there is a plan that is for free, that is called Essential. You have a limited number of functionalities, but you can join conferences that have been created by other members. So I think this would be sufficient for collaborating with us in the frame of the open course.
Thank you, Alan. Moving to the next question, where can we find full technical documentation on the CORTEX2 platform to see if it offers the capabilities we would need as a use case partner to implement our proposed use case within the time frame of the project within our proposal? This information is available in Annex 1.1 technical specification. If there is anything specific and additional that you want to ask, of course, you can ask it now. And we're also going to have a follow-up webinar number 3, where we're going to be delving into the co-development topics and domains, where you're going to be provided with further information. I don't know if Alan want to build on my response.
No, I think that's perfectly fine. We have a documentation of the current state of the CORTEX2 platform that is provided as annex in the documents that you can find when you apply. The selected partners will also, I mean, since we are currently also developing the project itself, the exact documentation will evolve. And if you are selected and you start the project with us, at the beginning of the project, you will get a complete documentation of the SDKs that will be available at that time.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the next question. Can a use case partner also put costs for developing of glue software, additional components necessary to implement their use case if such necessary functionality is not currently available in CORTEX2 platform in sufficient time during the project implementation timescale?
Yeah, I can already
I believe, yes.
Yes. In the use case track, you can also develop functionalities that are not available currently and that are identified as needed for running the use case.
Thank you. I believe the next question is also for you. Track 1 co-development. Is there a restriction on hardware? What can we use?
We have not put any restriction on hardware. Actually, there is a number of topics that we have described in this track, and you can look at the topics. Typically, they do not require a specific hardware, but we also have an open topic where you can come with novel ideas. And if this idea involves a hardware that is not currently being supported by the framework, then you also need to show in your proposal that you are able to integrate it and that you are able to use it. So you will not be provided by the Cortex consortium, but apart from this restriction, you can come with any hardware that you think is necessary.
Thank you. Next question. You mentioned that the integration with CORTEX2 architecture and technological solutions will be taken into consideration. Regarding the call for use cases, is it expected that along with the use case infrastructure for a specific application of AR/VR technologies will be developed and delivered interfaces or indicative implementation example for the use case? Who are the expected users? Internal users from the project or something else? And how are they expected to take advantage and evaluate a use case? Alan, if you can take on this, and I can follow up.
This is important to precise, because in the use case, we would like to see more use cases of the platform because we want to see novel uses. So the users will not be persons that are already using the platform, but you will have to provide also a plan for evaluating your use case with users. So I take an example. If you decide to use a technology in a hospital for doctors, for example, then you have to organize also the testing with real doctors that will test it and evaluate the system, and you will collect the results in user questionnaires or other ways of evaluation. So all of that needs to be precised in the proposal, but we are seeking explicitly users that currently do not use the platform and that are outside of the current consortium.
Yes,
I don't know if
thank you.
I answered correctly the question.
I think so. If something was not answered, I suggest the user. Sorry, I suggest the user to add any additional queries that he might have. Then we move to the next one, just probably to reiterate on what Alan said. For the user experience and for the users, we would expect you to develop this within your implementation plan. And of course, this has to be already seen within your application. If you're applying under track 2 use cases, this means that you have an actual use case that would be suitable for external users. Okay, and then moving to the next question. I work as a freelancer, but perfectly fit to the co-development part. If I start a company in December, would I be eligible to get a grant? Or is there a condition to have the company open for a longer period? I can easily show the proof of record, but as a freelancer, not a company. Okay, Eva, I think you can take this one.
Yes. The eligibility criteria is clear. There need to be a legal entity registered. So but at the submission date, yes. So the deadline is by the 16th of January, and until that time, there is a time to register the company. There will need to be that proof, as we mentioned, for the contracting phase. So there is no requirement for the duration of the company, how long the company should be existing. You need to prove to the evaluators in your proposal that you have the capacity, expertise that is required. That is the most important, of course, apart from the legal aspect, that if you're going to register your company on time, that means at the submission time, it's a legal entity, then you are eligible to apply.
So thank you. Then moving to the next question. we're developing a UI for programming and interaction with robots using AR technology. We developed this with tele and remote collaboration in mind, and as a very intuitive and visual interface, requiring no expertise in robotics. My question is our product within the scope of this scope, for example, as an open domain? Thank you.
Yes, I think I can answer this one. I think that this type of products is in the scope. You have to demonstrate the interest to use the Cortex platform on top of what you already have. So it needs to be somehow integrated and use the framework. But apart from that, yes, it's in the scope.
Excellent, thank you. And then the next one is a follow-up on the question that I responded in written format. And the follow-up is, does that mean that the use case project can use parts of track 1 project if needed fit? Since we're following up on the previous question, it's related to the utilization of solutions coming from track 1 into track 2. Yes, this is exactly the response. We're going to be working with each use case separately to see which of the solutions coming from track 1 would be most suitable to be implemented within the individual projects.
I can only,
Okay.
Ellie, just sorry to add for everyone's information that the idea is that we want to, at some point, there will be different starting points, starting date for the 2 tracks, but we definitely want to encourage potential, cross collaboration and any additional synergies that can happen. We are not requiring this, it's not a mandatory, but definitely it would be really interesting to see if, the features coming from the track 1 can also be potentially tested, exercise in the use cases if applicable. Yeah, so this is just an additional comment.
Thank you, Eva. Next question addressed to Alan, I would say. To what extent, to what extent can we use other SDKs, paid or unpaid, open source or proprietary?
Yes, I would say there is no specific limitation in using existing SDKs. It's clear that if you are using a specific hardware, you most probably will need to use a dedicated SDK, or if you use specific software that you want to integrate, you can use an SDK. Regarding the question paid or unpaid, it's also possible to use a SDK that necessitate a license or a subscription. In that case, I would recommend to describe in your proposal what are the expected costs per user when you use it, because if it's something that is very expensive, it might be a limitation for using it. So this should be covered. And also, if you need to take a subscription yourself to participate in the project, you need to budget this into the budget of your proposal.
Excellent. Moving to the next question. I'm interested in the developments made within the CORTEX2, and I would like to know if the open source technologies and solutions will be available for commercial use once the project is completed. What about intellectual property?
So this is a question that is more about the project CORTEX2 itself rather than the open call, but still I can give a short answer. In any EU project, there is an exploitation plan that we do towards the end of the project. This will describe how different parts of the projects, modules, or even the entire solution will be made available. It can be open source, it can be using a commercial license, and this is not decided completely yet. We have some parts that are explicitly open source in the project, and I guess these ones will stay open source and they will be usable. But the decision will be taken more in the 3rd year of the project. Now we just started the 2nd year, so you need to stay tuned and follow the project if you want to know more about this. About intellectual property, in any EU project, the intellectual property of what is developed belongs to the partners. So if it's developed by one single partner, it belongs to that partner. If it's developed by a consortium or several partners together, then there is a shared IP. And then the persons that have the IP can decide how they want to exploit the results.
Thank you, Alan. Then there is a follow-up on a previous question. The attendee is stating that he cannot find the technical specification document. Technical specification document is Annex 1.1 called Technical Description. It's within the set of documents within CORTEX2 website. If you click under Guidelines for Applicants and OC1 Documents, you are automatically going to receive the folder with all relevant documents. Nevertheless, if you believe that something is still missing there, you can send us an email through the Open Call Cortex email, and then we can consider what else can be added in order for all participants to have equal opportunities in receiving the right type of information. Okay. So next question. This is a follow-up on a previous question. So this means that the use case should include the scenario, the development of the solution, and the users to evaluate the scenario, right?
Yes.
In short, yes.
In short, yes.
Yes, I just want to only follow up because we don't know if the person that asked the question is the first time already seeing the template for the application, but you know, in short, yes, but the specific requirements of all the application, the proposal writing for the use case is available on our website, and you know, the use case proposal must really follow the template with the specific requirements in the template. I believe it's Annex 2.2, if I'm not mistaken, just to be very precise, that we have a clear understanding of the full requirements to build the use case proposal.
Thank you, Eva. Next question. For the co-development track, we need to develop applications aligned only with the 10 topics provided. Will they be directly integrated in the CORTEX2 platform during the 9 months of the project? I think both Eva and Alan can collaborate on answering this.
Actually, we have described 10 topics of things that the consortium would like to see and integrate. But we also have a last topic that is an open topic, so you can actually come with any ID, even if it does not fit into one of the topics. And yes, the idea is to integrate and use the existing platform. So during the 9 months of the project, we will integrate this into the Cortex platform.
Okay,
I
thank
believe
you.
Alan covered, yeah.
Excellent. Next question. Can we have a consortium of 2 SMEs for the co-development or the use case? Do we have a pool of partners we can connect with? I'm going to answer the use case part, and then Eva, if you can follow up. So for the use case part, we do not have a limitation on whether 2 SMEs or an SME, another type of entity, can apply within a consortium. The main thing here is that a tech adopter is a must, meaning the one that is applying the use case. If a tech developer as an additional SME is needed for the consortium to be successful and to implement the solution successfully, then absolutely this is eligible. And then Eva, if you would like to take on.
So regarding the co-development track, 2 SMEs can apply. They can have a role like a technology provider, developer. That's absolutely fine. So this is eligible. And answering the other part of the question, do we have a pool of partners we can connect? There is a matchmaking call open at the F6S. Keep in mind, you don't need to have, it's not mandatory to have another partner. Yes, you can apply as a single entity, but of course, in case you are missing, you want to apply for the use case and you are missing the tech user or technology adapter, then of course, yes, you need to build a consortium. And support from our side is that matchmaking platform that I mentioned. The link is also on our website, on the OpenCo1 website. Afterwards, Ellie, maybe we can try to find and post it also in the chat. But apart from that, I can really advise you, as we can see, there is activity on the both F6S application pages in the discussion. Each of the F6S application pages, so the track 1 code development page has a discussion board when people sometimes post, that they are this profile and they are looking forward to collaborate with this. There are not too many, but there are a few of those announcements. And the same is regarding the use cases. I would say for the use cases, I think it's a little bit more. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at those two discussion board of the application form at the F6S. In case you will have any troubles to find them, feel free to contact us. There are those public announcements, so everyone can see them, and you can simply reply to people that posted.
Thank you, Eva. Then the next question. For the co-development track, do SMEs need to be experts in XR? We're very much aligned with some of the 10 topics provided, but do not use XR.
I don't think that you need to be an expert of XR, but you need to show that you can contribute to this project, which is an XR project. So I don't know exactly what you are developing, but if this is useful as an extension of the CORTEX2 framework, then yes, you don't need to be an expert of XR.
I can only maybe add to remind that applicant that, of course, if they're applying as a one SME, they may also try to find if potentially that, would feel more comfortable or confident, they can still find a partner with the expert at XR, and they find the distribution of efforts. That's also always possible. Just to add this.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions, so I think we can take them regardless of the fact that we're a bit ahead of time. This is a follow-up regarding Annex 1.1 technical description. On page 11, it shows planned status of the Cortex framework by the end of February 2024. Are the components ready? Just to mention, in the document, there are different sections, and within those different sections, we're showing current state of development and planned state of development. Everything that is anticipated for February 2024 is going to be ready by then. Up until now, we have what is listed within the annex. I don't know if Alan want to add something.
No, it's perfectly right. Not all the components that are planned for being ready in February 24 are ready today, but they will be ready by February 24.
I can only add just to secure the applicants. Please remember that the proposal that you are submitting to us, of course, requires certain details, but in general, it is a certain plan. And as you could see in my presentation, Ellie presentation, there will be this first phase that will have the time for fine tuning. Yes, so then you will get specific access to the detailed, documentation and any other materials relevant from the CORTEX2, and there will be this time to work with the mentor to really tailored, fine-tune and detailed the plan. So the most important is to really understand and create such idea for the external evaluators to believe and forecast that this can really bring an impact. So keep that also in mind when building your application, that there will be time to really extend and create the specification and detailed technical plans once you are selected and invited to the program.
Excellent. And then I think this is the final question. In terms of supported hardware, especially HMDs, as you're using Unity, is it therefore the case that any device we wish to use has to be one that is supported by Unity as a runtime device?
No, it's not the case, because already in the project now we are supporting Unity on one side, but also web-based XR on the other side. So we can also support hardware that is not supported by Unity. It's already demonstrated. Of course, if you use a hardware that is one of the hardware supported by Unity, then the integration would be easier for the Unity part, but it's not limited to that.
Okay, I think this was the last question.
Yes, perfect. I don't know, Alan, Ellie, do you have some comments before we simply close off?
No, just for people to stay tuned for our final webinar and to attend it, because then we're going to be delving into details in each topic and domain, and it's very valuable, and that's it.
Definitely. So all people that register for today's webinar, you will receive an email from us once this webinar is already recorded and published on our digital channels, and we will also share and again encourage you indeed to register for our final webinar. Don't really miss it, because we're going to have a lot of experts there from those technical domains, and then we can even more explore and answer your specific questions. So thank you so much for your participation. Good luck with your application, and we hope to see your application in the pipeline and see you in the next webinar. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ellie, as a host,